Hare Krishna. So we start chapter 4 of Canto 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Chapter 3 concluded by presenting that Sri Krishna has arisen in Kali Yuga in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Sri Krishna. It is where Dharma has taken shelter of. Dharma and Jnana have taken shelter of. So naturally, the discussion now moves on to understanding everything about Srimad Bhagavatam. When did this discourse of Parikshit Maharaj and Shukdev Goswami happen? When did it occur? Where did it occur? What led to it? Who were the characters involved? So, chapter 4 is going to present the genesis of Srimad Bhagavatam. Everything about Srimad Bhagavatam, because now we have established that yes, Srimad Bhagavatam is Sri Krishna himself. So let us see how we come to a understanding of the inquiry at Naimisharanya, what was happening there. So Srila Prabhupada titles it The Appearance of Sri Narad. So chapters 4 and 5 together will lead to the appearance of Narad Muni to Vyasdev. That is the broader discussion. But first, we will understand the appearance of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay? Let's chant verse 1. Vyasa uvacha iti bruvanam samstuya muninam dirghasatrinam vriddhakulapati sutam bhavricha shaunako bravit. On hearing Suta Goswami speak thus, Shaunak Muni, who was the elderly learned leader of all the rishis engaged in that prolonged sacrificial ceremony, congratulated Suta Goswami by addressing him as follows. So Suta Goswami has answered the 6 questions put forward by the sages of Naimisharanya, headed by Shaunakadi rishis, and they were so inspired, they were so heartened by hearing Suta Goswami speak that the leader of the assembly, who is the leader? Shaunak. Why? Because what are the attributes of a leader? The qualifications of a congratulator. If somebody has to give a vote of thanks, who should be the vote of thanks? Not a newcomer in your organization. That will, be an insult to the guest. So the vote of thanks or the congratulations should be given by one who is a leader. Vriddha Kulapati and Bahuvricha. He's elder, he's leader, and he's also very learned. So Shaunak Rishi had all these qualifications. Therefore, he stood up to congratulate Suta Goswami. So when Suta Goswami said that I'll share it with you, what I have heard, I'll share it with you, yathadhitam yathamati. So as soon as they heard, oh, he's going to share exactly as he had heard from Shukdev Goswami, also as he had realized it personally. So, yathadhitam yathamati. It ensures alignment with parampara, and it also ensures practiced realization. It's not just information. So, Srila Prabhupada presents what is the meaning of realization. He said, Sutta Goswami says, right? And in the last verse of the previous chapter, I will share it with you. Yathadhitam yathamati. As far as I have realized it. So, what is realization? The realization doesn't mean you come up with something new and you try to surpass your previous acharya. Oh, the acharya is saying this, I have a better understanding. Do you know? That is not the meaning of realization. You don't show your learning and surpass the previous acharyas. One should have full confidence in the previous acharya. But at the same time, one must have realized it so well that they can present it in a suitable manner depending on circumstances. So it is about presentation. If you have realized it, you know it. It is not something you have memorized and you will repeat, copy paste. If you have realized it, you will know how would this apply to someone in a different circumstance, in a different situation. So the ability to present realized wisdom according to specific circumstances is called realization. So we should not attempt to surpass the previous acharya. The original purpose of the text should be maintained. That is why Srila Prabhupada, critiques some, certain commentators on the Gita, on the Bhagavad Gita, whose teaching does not conclude with the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita necessarily presents the idea of Sharanagati. So if a commentary does not present Sharanagati, that means you are not being true to the purpose of the text. If you want to bring up some meaning, write another book. But if you are writing a commentary, you have to stay, you have to demonstrate fidelity or loyalty to the purpose of the text. You cannot just, bring out any meaning. But so the original purpose of the text is maintained. We have full confidence in the previous acharya, but we are still able to present it in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. Teaching is not about instructing. Teaching is about evoking curiosity in the student. If the student is not curious, they don't have an appetite, they don't have an hunger, how much ever you dump on them, they'll not take it. So nobody's life has changed by just being imposed with jnana. It has to be digested. So a good teacher will be able to create curiosity in their students. At the right time, hearing from them, hearing, understanding their situation, then presenting. So you should lead them to the truth. How will you solve this? So that's realization. Mm. So Shanak Rishi, who was the leader of that assembly, could immediately see the value, could see the high maturity of Suta Goswami, and therefore he stood up to congratulate him. So both the speaker and the audience were bona fide. In this meeting where Bhagavatam was being recited for the second time, okay, so this should be the standard of every Bhagavad recitation. The speaker should be bona fide, should be true to the text and to the acharyas, and the audience should be inquisitive. Then the real purpose can be served without difficulty. Then there can be transformation of heart, transformation of character. Otherwise, it will only be our temporary entertainment or intellectual titillization. Unless this situation is created, Bhagavatam recitation for extraneous purposes is useless labor both for the speaker and for the audience. So we are here together to move ahead collectively in our journey of spiritual transformation. So this is a different, in modern education, you are taught to critique. Or this is the idea of the original philosopher. Let me critique it and establish my own idea. Or find the weakness in the previous philosopher's presentation. In fact, a lot of philosophy in the recent decades, there has been rarely an original idea, but all of it has been critique of previous ideas. So there has been no innovative thinking. And what to speak of innovative thinking, we have discussed previously. Vyaso Chishtam Jagat Sarvam. Entire world is remnants of Vyastik. So what originality we are talking about anyways? So best is to take a position of Yathadhitam Yathamati. I have received it from an authentic transmission and I'll present it to you with loyalty. So this is the spirit in which we study scripture. So yes, the purpose of the text should be maintained, but there is scope and there is a need to also present it in an interesting manner. Like food is good, food nourishes, but you also want flavor, right? You also want good taste. So there is a balance which is recommended here. So here we see in the following verses, we will see glorification of the speaker of Bhagavatam, which is Shukdev Goswami, the glorification of the hearer of Bhagavatam, which is Parikshit Maharaj, and then the glorification of the compiler of Bhagavatam, which is Vyasadeva. So these are the themes which are coming in this chapter ahead. Shukdev Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj, Vyasadeva, how great they were. Okay, so first of all, we are seeing in this verse that Shaunak Rishi, because he's Vriddha, he's elder, because he is Kulapati, he's leader, and he's also learned, Vahavricha. He had acquired superior knowledge by studying of the Vedas. So the excellence of the speaker and the hearer of Bhagavatam is being presented in this chapter, in the first part. And in the second part of this chapter, we'll see how the compiler of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva, receives mercy. And what was his situation before he received that mercy? Let's recite verse 2. So here, Shaunak Rishi is congratulating Suta Goswami. Shaunaka uvacha Suta Suta Mahabhaga Vadano Vadatam Vara Katham Bhagavatim Punyam Yat Aha Bhagavan Shukaha. Shaunak said, O Suta Goswami, you are the most fortunate and the respected of all those who can speak and recite. Please relate the pious message of Srimad Bhagavatam, which was spoken by the great and powerful sage Shukdev Goswami. Please speak to us. Vada means to speak. Naha, speak to us. Because, why should you speak? Because from Vada, from all the Vadatam, from all those who can speak, you are the best. You are the most respected. Vada, Tam, Vara. Vara is the superlative, the best. What should you speak upon? What is the message you should speak to us? Katham. Katham doesn't mean story here. Katham means message. What message? Katham Bhagavatim. Message of the Bhagavatam. And the word Bhagavatam means of Bhagavan. So essentially, messages of Bhagavan. Why? Because they are punyam. And they were spoken by Bhagavan Shuka. So Bhagavan Shuka, the word Bhagavan is used to address Shukdev Goswami because of his greatness. So a lot of places in Srimad Bhagavatam we'll see that sometimes people are addressed as Bhagavan. Narad Muni is addressed as Bhagavan. How do we understand this? They are a representation of the potency of Bhagavan. Chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita says that everything that's splendorous, is wondrous, is majestic, is impressive, is a spark of Krishna's splendor. So if you see any potency in anyone, Shukdev Goswami, Narad Muni, we address them as Bhagavan. Not in the sense that, oh, Swayam Bhagavan, but in the sense of, wow, such wonder. And here, Shaunak Rishi is addressing him twice, Suta, Suta. So that is, that is to indicate that he was overjoyed. He was very eager to hear Bhagavatam. And they were not interested in hearing Bhagavatam from somebody who's not authorized, not coming in Parampara, who would interpret it to suit their own purpose. So-called Bhagavatam reciters are either professional readers or so-called learned impersonalists. So professional readers and impersonalists are not the right, presenters of Bhagavatam. Why? Because those who are impersonalist means they don't believe in Bhagwan. They don't accept the idea of Bhagwan. There's no Bhagwan, everything is just Brahman. And there is no separate identity of anything. So they deny Bhagwan's form, individuality. So therefore, if somebody denies Bhagwan, they cannot enter into Bhagwan's transcendental activities. They just twist some meanings out of their presentation to suit their purpose. And those who are professional readers, they directly go to the Ras Leela. They want to, entice the audience. They're doing it for a professional cause. So they're like, how can I, trigger various thoughts and emotions, and then let me present Ras Leela straight away. And then they end up misexplaining the most confidential Leelas of Krishna. Neither of these reciters are bona fide persons to recite Bhagavatam. Only one who is prepared to present Bhagavatam in the light of Shukdev Goswami, they are a right presenter. And only those who are prepared to hear Shukdev Goswami and his representative are bona fide participants. So that is how studying in a tradition looks like. Unless you are ready to stand by the message of the Acharya, you are not a bona fide representative. And if you're not interested in hearing the message of the original Acharya, then you're not a bona fide listener. It will not lead to transformation, and as we discussed, it will only lead to some information transmission. So he's congratulating, please recite Bhagavatam because it's about Bhagwan, therefore it is Punyam. Verse 3. Kasmin yuge pravritteyam sthane vakena hetuna kutah sanjodita Krishna kritvan samitam munihi. So now Shaunak Rishi starts asking the background of Srimad Bhagavatam. Kasmin yuge, in what period and at what place was this first begun? Sthane, and why was this taken up? Hetuna, so when, where, and why about Bhagavatam. From where did Krishna Dvaipayan Vyas, this is a full name of Vyasdev, Krishna Dvaipayan Vyas. From where did Krishna Dvaipayan Vyas, the great sage, get the inspiration to compile this literature? Sanjoditaha. Sanjodita means inspiration. Where did he get that inspiration from? Yeah. What was the premise? How did it all occur? And Sammitam is this literature. So because Srimad Bhagavatam is a special contribution of Srila Vyasdev, therefore he is asking about the appearance of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam had already explained Vedas in various ways, Puranas, Mahabharata, but they were in a different category. They were still around the Purusharthas of Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. They were not at a transcendental level. But when he presented Srimad Bhagavatam, that was something special, never done before, even by Vyasdev himself. Therefore, Shaunak Rishi is so gladdened and overjoyed. Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all of them. All of them means everything that Vyasadeva had compiled before Srimad Bhagavatam. Puranas, Vedas, Brahma Sutra, Vedanta. Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all of them because it has nothing to do with anything mundane. Dharma, Prajita, Kaitava. So the inquiries of Shaunak Rishi are very intelligent and relevant. So let's look at this question of Shaunak Rishi. What is being presented here? As we discussed, chapter 4 is presenting a genesis of the Bhagavatam. When did it happen? Tell me in terms of the Yuga. Where did it happen? Give me a geographic location. Why did it happen? Was there a reason for this dialogue to occur? Now, what was the motive behind this presentation? And who was the source of its transmission? Yeah. Who inspired Vyasdev to write it? So these are the inquiries of Shanak Rishi, and we see it's going to lead us to a very beautiful understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. So now we start with the who. First, we start with understanding about the speaker, Shukdev Goswami. That's from verse 5. Let's chant. Sorry, verse 4. तस्य पुत्रो महायोगी समदृक् निर्विकल्पकः एकान्तमतिर् उन्निद्रो गूढो मूढ इवे yate. So now we are trying to understand who were involved in this, you know, transmission of Srimad Bhagavatam. First was Shukdev Goswami. Now this verse talks about Shukdev Goswami, who is the son of Vyasdev. His, that is Vyasdev's son, was a great devotee, an equibalanced monist whose mind was always concentrated in monism. He was transcendental to mundane activities, but being unexposed, he appeared like an ignorant person. So these are, the great attributes of Shukdev Goswami. Who is this Shukdev? Who, is going to be the reciter or teacher of Srimad Bhagavatam. So let's look at some of his attributes. First of all, we've already discussed before that he is from the category of Atmaram. Atmaramascha munayor nirgrantha api urukrame. Atmaram is one who is self-satisfied, who is not seeking any pleasure outside. They are complete in themselves. And these are munis. They are thinkers. Yeah. And they are nirgranthi. They are not entangled with anything material. So let us look at the attributes of such a monist. So the first attribute is that he was realized in Brahman. We study Brahma Gyan, but Shukdev Goswami was realized in impersonal knowledge, Brahman. He had Brahman Sakshatkar. He was Nirvikalpa. Nirvikalpakaha. Nirvikalpakaha means realized in impersonal Brahman. And then he was Ekantamati. His mind was, attention was concentrated in one point. And he's described as Unnidra, means having given up ignorance. But because he did not reveal his true nature, he was covered. Gudha means masked. So he appeared, nobody knew all of this about him. We know because, Srimad Bhagavatam is telling us, but if you saw Shukdev Goswami passing by, you'll not be able to understand this. And same goes for, very advanced spiritualists moving around in society. We'll never be able to recognize them. So because he did not reveal himself, he remained masked, Gudha, he appeared like a Mudha. Mudha Iva. Iyate. He appeared like a Mudha. He was definitely not a Mudha. He appeared. Iyate. He appeared to be a fool. And those who are self-realized, they like it. Let people think I'm a fool. Good, they'll not bother me. They want to stay away from worldly nuance. So what is presented here? He was always alert not to be trapped by illusory energy. Ekanta. So when you are on a path of self-realization, you have to be very alert. Nirgrantha. You have to be very alert to not fall trap into the attachments or allurements of this world. This is very difficult. Srila Prabhupada explains the difference between a liberated soul and a conditioned soul. And this comes in the Bhagavad Gita. So Srila Prabhupada says, who is a liberated person? Who is on the progressive path of spiritual attainment. Somebody who is pursuing a spiritual goal. And a conditioned soul cannot even think of this. There is no conception of a spiritual goal for a conditioned person. For them, it is just, they're doing something foolish. It is a dream. That is how a conditioned soul will think about a spiritualist. There's a beautiful verse in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. Ya nisha sarvabhutanam tasyam jagriti samyami yasyam jagriti bhutani sa nisha pashyato munihi muneha. So for the muni, for the self-controlled and introspective sage, what is day for the muni is night for the ignorant, the conditioned. So they are both in opposite category. They might seem to be on the same platform, or two people are coming to office, two people have families, but one can be a muni, another can be a bhogi, a yogi and a bhogi. You cannot really make out the difference by externals. They're factually differently engaged. You have to see how are they engaged, what intention are they doing it with. And their attention is always alert. So a yogi will have their attention in self-realization, and a bhogi will have their attention in sense enjoyment. So self-realization or sense gratification, that is the difference between the two. Liberated person and a conditioned soul. So Prabhupada summarizes it. A conditioned soul is absorbed in matter, whereas a liberated soul is indifferent to matter, nirgrantha, not, you know, not interested with anything to do with matter. So this is the greatness of Shukdev Goswami. Then further, there is a his character is presented through one incident which occurred, when we know that Shukdev Goswami was not ready to come out of the womb of his mother because he said, I don't want to get bewildered by Maya, so I'll not take birth. But his father assured him, don't worry, Maya will not, overcome you. On that assurance, he appeared, and as soon as he appeared, he left home and started wandering out into the forest. What would a father feel? What would a father and mother feel? Why are you leaving us? So that incident is being explained in the next verse. दृष्ट्वानुयन्तं ऋषिमात्मजम् अप्य अङ्गम् अनग्नं देव्यो ह्रिया परितद्दुर्नसुतस्य चित्रम् तद्वीक्षया पृच्छति मुनयो जगतुस्तवास्ति स्त्रीपुंभिदानतु सुतस्य विविक्तदृष्टेः. Very beautiful verse again. It is saying that while Srila Sri Vyasdev, his father, was running behind him, while Sri Vyasdev was following his son, beautiful young damsels who were bathing naked covered their bodies with cloth. Although Sri Vyasdev himself was not naked. But they had not done so when his son had passed. The sage inquired about this, and when the young ladies replied, that his son was purified, and when looking at them, made no distinction between male and female. But the sage made such distinctions. So, Srila Prabhupada presents beautiful verse, somebody who is realized Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmani Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shrapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. So somebody who is a Pandit, they'll be able to see everything equally. Have a vision of oneness of the soul. That everyone is essentially a soul. They are just taken different bodies depending on how they have used their free will. If they have misused their free will, they have got a lower species of life. And if they have used their free will well, they have got an advanced species of life. That's all. Otherwise, these are just forms. They keep changing. They will again change depending on the karma of the jiva in this life. So the forms are not important. The soul within is important. So somebody who's at the level of Shukdev Goswami, they are seeing the soul. They're not seeing the dress. Yeah. And the ladies could also see that from the demeanor of Shukdev Goswami, that he is not looking at us with a material vision. He is beyond all of this. So they could see, the ladies could see that he is looking at us innocently like a child. So they did not care to cover their bodies. Yeah. Because they were young. Shukdev Goswami was young. Shukdev Goswami was in fact naked. They were naked, but still they did not feel any, sense that would make them cover themselves. They were feeling like fine, an innocent, self-realized person is walking. So Shukdev Goswami was transcendental to sex relations. Because he was transcendental to sex relations, he appeared very innocent. And the ladies could sense this, and they were not very concerned. Yeah. But when Vyasdev is coming now, Vyasdev is like grandfather to these damsels who are bathing. And Vyasdev is clothed. He's not naked. But they say that your son did not make distinction, but you do. Therefore, we are covering ourselves. What distinctions is Vyasdev making? Because he is in a role of a person in a family life, he has to make distinctions. How can a Grihastha not distinguish between male and female? It's not practical. So because Vyasdev, it's not that he was not self-realized, mind you, he was playing the part of a householder. And a householder has to distinguish Stri, Pum, Bhida. So that difference has to be made in practical worldly dealings. So Vyasdev was also at the level of realization, but because of social custom, he had to see differences, and that's why the ladies covered their selves. So, as long as one has not overcome the distinction of male and female, one should not try to become a sannyasi like Shukdev Goswami. Then you might say, then that is never going to happen. So then what does Prabhupada say? Okay, at least theoretically, one must be convinced that a jiva is not male or female, it's just a dress. Start with that theoretical conviction. These bodies, these forms are all made to enamor us in this world. So, Shukdev Goswami did not distinguish. For him, they were all one and the same. This is the perfection of his spiritual vision at the liberated stage. Srila Vyasdev was also in the transcendental stage, but because he was in a householder's life, he did not pretend to be a liberated soul as a matter of custom. So it is very important we act from the place of our ashram. If a grihastha tries to imitate a sannyasi, it will create imbalance, it will create only distress. So we have to follow the guidance, the rules and regulations of our particular ashram. Otherwise, it creates a lot of confusion. Okay, so this is about Shukdev Goswami that one thing. That how does somebody who is a nirvikalpa, how do they look? What is the symptom of their absorption? So he did not make any distinction. He had pure vision, vivikta drishti. Further, about Shukdev Goswami, verse 6. Katham alakshita paurahi samprapta kuru jangalan unmatam mukha jadavat vicharangajasa yave savaye. How was he, Srila Shukdev, the son of Vyas, recognized by the citizens when he entered the city of Hastinapur, now Delhi, after wandering in the provinces of Kuru and Jangal, appearing like a madman, dumb and retarded? Just 1 second. So the question is, how did the people recognize them when he was, entering? Because how did he reach the banks of Ganges to meet Parikshit Maharaj? Did the people recognize him? Because he appeared Jadavad, means dumb. Mukha is dumb. Jadavat is stunted. Unmata is mad. He appeared like a deaf and dumb person, a madman. How did people recognize him? So he was roaming like a madman after leaving his paternal home. And therefore, it was very difficult for the citizens to recognize him in his exalted position. So, what is the learning here? That a sage you cannot recognize by seeing, you recognize a sage by hearing. One should approach a sadhu or a great sage not to see but to hear. So, everyone wants darshan, but real benefit of sadhu sangha is shravan. If one is not prepared to hear the words of a sadhu, there is no profit. So Shukdev Goswami was a sadhu who could speak on transcendental activities of the Lord. So he had access to activities of the Lord, which is transcendental. So he did not satisfy the whims of the ordinary citizens. What would you like to hear? How can I entertain you? That's not a true sage. A true sage presents only transcendental subject matters. So when he was recognized when he spoke on the subject of Bhagavad, and he never attempted jugglery like a magician. So let people not recognize me. But as soon as such great sages start speaking, immediately everyone can recognize that they are an elevated, transcendental personality. So this is about Shukdev Goswami. Now Shaunak Rishi is asking about Parikshit Maharaj, the next few verses. 1 second. Yeah. So next is inquiry about Parikshit Maharaj. Katham va पाण्डवेयस्य राजर्षेर्मुनिना सह संवादः सम्भूत तात यत्रैषा सात्वती श्रुतिः. How did it so happen that King Parikshit, the descendant of Pandava, is called Pandaveyasya? How did it so happen that King Parikshit met this great sage, making it possible for this great transcendental essence of the Vedas, Bhagavatam, to be sung to him? Okay, fine. Shukdev Goswami is a great personality, but he is wondering what could bring these two people from opposite worlds together. One is a king, and another is a sadhu. How could they even meet? So Srimad Bhagavatam here is presented as the essence of the Vedas. Shrutihi, Satvati, Shrutihi. So the message of Shukdev Goswami is called Shrutihi, means the essence of the Shrutis, the Vedas. It is also called Shuka Samhita because it was spoken by Shukadev Goswami, the great liberated sage. Yeah. Because it's not the nature of these people to meet, they are of different categories of life. Next was And especially the nature of Shukdev Goswami and sages like him is to keep wandering. They never stop. Sagodohana matram hi griheshu grihamedinam avekshate mahabhagas tirthi kurvam stadashramam. He, Shukdev Goswami, was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked. And he did this just to sanctify the residence. So when great sages, saints visit the houses, it is to sanctify them. Tirthi kurvams. They transform the house into a tirtha, a holy place. Tadashramam. So the house is transformed into a place of pilgrimage by the arrival of a sage or a saint. And Shukdev Goswami would go to someone's house only for that much time, which is sufficient to milk a cow. Yeah. How much time would that take? Less than half an hour. You don't stay beyond that. There's no business. He would just take alms from the fortunate householder. So taking alms, taking bhiksha from the grihastha is just a pretext. The real purpose is to give spiritual wisdom to the grihastha who's too busy, too engrossed with worldly life and responsibilities. So a sage visits them, gives them transcendental message, and helps them move towards liberation. That was to sanctify the residence by his auspicious presence. So Shukdev Goswami is an ideal preacher in transcendental position. So those who are in the renounced order of life and they are dedicated to the mission of preaching the message of God should learn that they have no business with the householders save and except to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge. Because a sadhu should not get allured by the glamour of a householder. A householder might have a lot of worldly possession. Yeah. But a sadhu should not become impressed by them or attracted by them. A sadhu should know that their only purpose of that interaction is to enlighten. This has to be very clear. And one should not be allured by the glamour of the householder's worldly possession and thus become subservient to worldly men. You get so carried away by their opulence, their status, their power that you become subservient to them. We'll see a beautiful verse in Canto 2, which echoes this same spirit. Kasmat bhajanti kavayo dhanadhur madandham. Those who are kavis, sadhus, why are they flattering dhanadhur madandham? Those who are intoxicated in wealth. The sadhus should never flatter the wealthy. One who is in the renounced order of life, for one who is in the renounced order of life, this is much more dangerous than drinking poison and committing suicide. It's just the nature, you should be very clear of the purpose of your interaction. Otherwise, it will end up influencing you, the teacher. So, what are some attributes? So, now further glories of Parikshit Maharaj are presented. Verse 9. Abhimanyu sutam suta prahur bhagvatottamam tasya janma mahascharya karmani cha grihini na naha. Grinihi means, please tell us that everything about Parikshit Maharaj is Maha Ascharyam. Everything about him is wonderful. Why? His birth is wonderful because in his womb, Lord Krishna appeared to protect him from the Brahmastra, sent by Ashwatthama. So his birth is wonderful because he was protected by the Lord himself in the womb. His activities are wonderful because he personally chastised Kali. Kali Yuga in personification was chastised by Parikshit Maharaj. He was punished. We'll come to that chapter later. His death is also wonderful. Why? Because he got a notice that you have 7 days to live. So his birth, his activities, and his death are all wonderful. Who is this personality? Hmm? Thus, he prepared himself for passing away by sitting down on the bank of the Ganges and hearing the transcendental activities of the Lord. So, for 7 days and 7 nights, Parikshit Maharaj did not eat or drink. He did not sleep even for a moment. That was the level of his absorption. So, everything about him is wonderful, and therefore his activities are worth hearing. So, Shaunak Rishi is expressing a desire. We want to hear about who is this great personality. And then about his rule. ससम्राट कस्य वाहेतुः पाण्डुनामः मानवर्धनः प्रायोपविष्टो गङ्गायाम् अनादृत्या adhirat shriyam. So he was the adhirat, he was the king of all opulences, shriyam. He was a great emperor and possessed all opulences of his acquired kingdom. He was so exalted that he was increasing the prestige of the Pandu dynasty. Why did he give up everything to sit down on the banks of the Ganges and fast until death? He was the emperor of the world, you know, and he did not have to put effort to acquire it. He was given this kingdom, his reign over the entire planet. He inherited from his grandfathers, the Pandavas, and it was not that he just inherited. He had his own qualifications. He was administering it perfectly. By his administration, he was increasing the Manavardhan. He was increasing the prestige of the Pandavas. So he was proving to be worthy of his good name. Yeah, that he is a descendant of the Pandavas. He proved that to be worthy. He proved himself to be worthy. So there was nothing undesirable in his life. His opulence, his administration, everything was perfect. Why should he give up these favorable circumstances and sit down on the banks of Ganges fasting till death? So this is astonishing. We want to know. So remember, the sages asked, Kasya hetu, what led to the teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam? So Parikshit Maharaj inherited all this wealth, but he became disinterested in it. अनादृता उन्होंने अनादर कर दिया किसका अधिराट श्रियम श्रियम opulences अधिराट is he being the controller of all those opulences still he neglected them. Text 11 नमन्ति यत्पादनिकेतमात्मनः शिवाय हानीय धनानि शत्रावः कथं स वीरः श्रियमङ्गदुष्ट्यजाम् युवा ऐक्षत युवा उत्सृष्टुम् अहो सह असुभिः. He was such a great emperor that all his enemies would come down and bow at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed insuperable kingly opulences. Why did he want to give up everything, including his life? Asubhi is referring to life air. Why did he want to give everything up? Kingdom, control, even your life. Yeah, so why did he have that desire? I should. So everything in his life was perfect. He was young. He could enjoy life with power and opulence. There was no question of him retiring when everything is at its, full flourishing. And he also had no difficulty in ruling the kingdom. The other kings would themselves come and pay their taxes. That is how powerful and chivalrous he was. That even his enemies would come to him and bow at his feet. That means they are surrendering all their wealth because they knew that is for my own benefit. Better I surrender to Parikshit Maharaj. Yeah. Pada Niketam. Literally, they're putting their heads at his feet. So he was a pious king. He conquered all his enemies, and his kingdom was full of prosperity. So, and the kingdom is prospering, nature is providing abundant resources. There was no reason to quit untimely. Why did he do that? So the sages were inquisitive. 12th, it's a very beautiful verse. Okay, fine. You want to give up because you are disinterested. But what if others are dependent on you? How can you give it up then? It is not just about yourself. Think of others who are dependent on you. Yeah, so that is presented in the next verse. शिवाय लोकस्य भवाय भूतये या उत्तम श्लोक परायणा जनाः जीवन्ति नात्मार्थम् असौ पराश्रयम् मुमोच निर्विद्य कुतः कलेवरम्. Very beautiful verse. You can also memorize it. Those who are devoted to the cause of the personality of Godhead, Uttama Shloka Parayana Janaha, basically devotees. Uttama Shlok is Krishna who is glorified by the choicest verses. Uttama Shloka Parayana. Parayan means to be dedicated or devoted. Jana, people who are dedicated to Krishna, live only for the welfare, development, and happiness of others. Shivaya Lokasya, for the people. Bhavaya Bhutaye, for their prosperity, for their happiness, for their development, you live. They do not live for any selfish interest. So, even though the Emperor Parikshit was free from all attachment to worldly possessions, how could he give up his mortal body, which was the shelter for others? He is a king. He is a shelter to so many. He might be unattached, but how can he give up his body, which is a shelter to others? So, very beautiful. It is presented here. Even if somebody is, not selfish, they still cannot renounce their own body. One should not give up something upon which others depend for life, though one may be personally detached from it. This is the question here. So, those who are surrendered to the Lord, they live for lokasya shivaya, for the auspiciousness of others, right? And how does this lokasya shivaya look? Two parts, bhavaya and bhutaye. So let us look at the purport. Srila Prabhupada is explaining that Parikshit Maharaj was an ideal king and householder because he was a devotee. So yeah, we have seen so many attributes and good qualities of Parikshit Maharaj, but the primary good quality was that he is a devotee of the Lord. And we have seen that one who is a devotee, in him or her, all other auspicious qualities appear. So he was a king. He might not have personal attachment for worldly opulence, but he was a king for the all-round welfare of his citizens. So king is busy in welfare work for the public, not only their current life, but also their future life. Are they stable? Are they secure? Are they peaceful? Are they spiritual? So that means taking care of this and the thereafter. That is the role of a king. Yeah. Not to, hoard resources and power, but to serve. He would not allow slaughterhouses or killing of cows. He was not a foolish and partial administrator who would arrange for the protection of one living being and allow another to be killed. And yeah, I mean, you protect human life, you have a big justice system, law enforcement system. So if you're protecting life in one form, how are you slaughtering life in another form of the animals? We are just like the elder family members of the animals. They look upon us for protection and we are slaughtering them. So, truly enlightened king will not differentiate. Oh, I have to save human life, but animal life is of no value. That's the wrong. He knew perfectly well how to conduct his administration for everyone's happiness, men, animals, plants, and all living creature. So he was not selfishly interested. Selfishness can be either self-centered or self-extended. We've discussed this. Even in the name of philanthropy, humanism, nationalism, this is all another form of selfishness, but extended selfishness. There can be immediate selfishness and extended selfishness. If there is no connection and foundation of God, all of this is only selfishness in one form or another. But Parikshit Maharaj was a devotee. His interest was to please the supreme truth. So king is supposed to be a representative of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, if you are representing someone, your interest should align with their interest. Why is a government official, an an administrator or a diplomat given so much facility, so much respect? Because they are supposed to serve the interest of the government. It's not about them. They have been delegated the mission to carry out the wish of the government. That's why. So that is the role of a king. A king's interest must be identical with that of the Supreme Lord. Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. The Lord wants everyone. For the Lord, all of us are his children. Animals, plants, human. He wants everyone to be happy. The king's interest is to guide all subjects back to the kingdom of God. Okay. Hence, the king should coordinate the activities of the people in such a way that they're stable, happy, and prosperous in this life and they are moving towards liberation in the next life. That is the idea of administration, not solving mundane problems related to the body. Hmm. If all living beings are satisfied with food and shelter and obey the prescribed rules, there cannot be any disturbance between one living being and another. That is how the king should manage. Let everyone be nourished, stable, secure, satisfied, peaceful. From that place of peace, they can practice dharma. Yeah, if the minds are not peaceful, how can anyone practice dharma? So Parikshit Maharaj was a worthy king, and all were happy during his reign. So this is, the glory of Parikshit Maharaj. So we are introduced to these two personalities here, the speaker of Bhagavatam and the hearer of Bhagavatam, and both are extraordinary. These are the profile of the speaker and the hearer. Nirvikalpa, self-realized, who had nothing to do with this world, would only interact with the world to enlighten them. And Parikshit Maharaj, who was a worthy descendant of the Pandavas, who possessed immense wealth, but he was completely renounced. He abandoned his kingdom and he was ready to give up his life when he was still young and powerful. So this is the scene. These are the personalities involved in the appearance of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we should know this. Okay. So now Shaunak Rishi comes back to Suta Goswami. Why is Suta Goswami qualified to teach us? Tat sarvam na sama chashkshva Prishto yad iha kinchana manye tvam vishaya vacham snatam anyatra chandasat. We know that you are expert in the meaning of all subjects except some portion of the Vedas. And thus you can clearly explain the answers to all the questions we have just put to you. So you are an expert. Yeah. Snatam Vacham. This is the quality highlighted by Shaunak Rishi. Why should we hear from you? Because you are Snatam Vacham. You are completely acquainted with the meaning of the words of the scriptures. You have full ability to speak. Yeah. Except for what? Chandasat. Chandasat are one portion of the Vedas where there are hints to chant and invoke different devatas. So Prabhupada says that the difference between Vedas and Puranas is like that between the Brahmanas and Parivrajakacharyas. So basically, the distinction is that of a priest and a philosopher. Vedas are all about ritualistic ceremonies, fruitive sacrifices, yagyas, and doing that chanting and recitation. But the philosopher, the teacher, the Parivrajakacharya literally means what we saw about Shukdev Goswami. He just wanders, enlightening people. He had no interest in gaining anything from them. So the Parivrajakacharya or the learned preachers, they are meant to disseminate transcendental knowledge to one and all. So the teachers need not be expert in chanting. That is the role of the priests. So you are an expert in all subject matters except for the part where chanting and pronunciation is required. And that is not, relevant for us. So the the Parivrajakacharyas, the preachers, are not always expert in pronouncing the Vedic mantras, which are practiced systematically by accent and meter by the Brahmanas, who are meant for administering Vedic rites. So Brahmanas are supposed to administer these Vedic rites and sacrifices and rituals. So they practice. They practice how to chant in the right meter, in the right pronunciation. But it doesn't mean that the preacher becomes less important than the Brahman. Yeah. They are one and different simultaneously because they are meant for the same end in different ways. Both are presenting the message of the Vedas, but in different ways. One is taking a ritualistic path, other is taking a reflective path. So there is no difference also between the Vedic mantras and what is explained in the Puranas and Itihasas. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, all the Vedas and the Puranas, Itihasas, Upanishads, etc., they are all emanations from the breathing of the Supreme Being. So the mantras, the chandas that the priests are chanting, they are, not different from the uh, explanations that the preachers are presenting. They are the same. They are all coming from the breath of Lord. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranidam. So what is Vedas? Vedas are what emerge from the breath of Vishnu. The only difference is that Vedic mantras mostly begin with pranava omkara. Om tad Vishnu paramam padam sada pashyanti suryaha. So this is how the priest will chant. It requires some training to practice the metric pronunciation. But that doesn't mean Srimad Bhagavatam is less important. On the contrary, it is the ripened fruit of all the Vedas. So all persons are qualified to receive Bhagavatam, irrespective of whether you know pronunciation or not. And Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit. So that means you have access to the essence of all the Vedas. Nigama kalpataror galitam palam. So if you have access to the fruit, why do you care about the leaves and the branches? It's okay. There is a function which the priests are fulfilling. Let them do it. We are interested in the essence. So, besides that, the most perfectly liberated soul, Srila Shukdev Goswami, is absorbed in the studies of Bhagavatam, although he is already self-realized. Yeah, we have seen this Atma Ramascha Muneyor, Nirgranthi Api Urukrame. They have no interest in anything material. They are Nirgranthi. But what happens even to the Nirgranthi? As soon as they come in touch with the narrations, the pastimes of the Lord, Urukrame. Urukrame means the Supreme Lord who does amazing pastimes. Urukrama means wonderful activities, magnificent activities, the Leelas which only Krishna can do. When they come in touch with the, beautiful Leelas of Krishna, what happens? Kurvanti ahaitukim bhaktin itham bhuta guno harihi. They are also attracted to the transcendental qualities of Krishna. Yeah. They are attracted to the loving service of Krishna. They also become devotees. That is the power of the transcendental quality of Hari. That he attracts even the self-realized who have nothing to do with anyone. So this represents the sweetness of the Lord. Okay. So here Prabhupada says, Srila Shukdev Goswami is following in his footsteps. Sorry, Srila Suta Goswami is following in his footsteps of Shukdev Goswami. And therefore his position is not the least less important because he was not expert in chanting the Vedic mantras with metric pronunciation. That pronunciation depends more on practice than on actual realization. The realization is more important than parrot-like chanting. So, understanding the essence of the Vedas in Srimad Bhagavatam through a teacher is realizing or, is the fruit rather than getting caught up in the parrot-like chanting of the mantras with perfect pronunciation. It's part of the Vedas, but don't have to get stuck there. You have to understand what's the conclusion, what's the essence. Okay? So then, Sutta will, okay, there's also this, that, okay. Sutta Goswami then starts speaking from 14th verse. Sutta Uvacha Dvapare समानुप्राप्ते तृतीय युग पर्यये जात पराशराद योगे वास वासव्याम kalaya हरेः. Sutta Goswami said, when the second millennium overlapped with the third, the great sage Vyasdev was born to Parashar. So now we come to the character of Srila Vyasdev. We have seen the character of Shukdev Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj, and now of Vyasdev. When the second millennium overlapped with the third, the great sage Vyasdev was born to Parashar in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu. So, this is Sutta Goswami answering the question of Shaunak Rishi. When? In which yuga? So he's giving a short account of Vyasdev's birth and activities. Yeah. So Krishna also appeared in this Dwapar Yuga. So, it is mentioned here. Normally, there are 4 yugas, Satya, Dwapar, Treta, and Kali. But sometimes there is an overlapping, and the third comes before the second. So this happened once. One cycle is called one yuga cycle. Satya, Dwapar, Treta, Kali. So one yuga cycle. So in the 28th yuga cycle of Vaivasvata Manu, there was this overlap that the third yuga came before the second. First there was Satya Yuga, then there was Treta Yuga, and then there was Dwapar Yuga. And in this Dwapar Yuga, Vyasdev appeared and Sri Krishna also appeared. Mhm. In that particular millennium, Lord Sri Krishna also descends because there was some irregularity, there was some alteration. So, Vyasdev is the son of Parashar Muni and Satyavati. So, this is a history of Vyasdev's birth. And every millennium is divided into three periods called Sandhya. So, if there are four parts, means there are three divisions. If you cut three times, you create four parts. So, those divisions are called Sandhya. And there are three Sandhyas. So, then there are called three sandhyas. So the beginning part is shorter, the middle portion is longer, and again the end sandhya is shorter. The proportion given in scriptures is 1 is to 8 is to 1. That is how the sandhyas appear. So this is just the timeline. When did this occur? So here the scene is set. Verse 15 says, स कदाचित् सरस्वत्या उप उपस्पृश्य जलं शुचिः विविक्त एक आसीन udite ravimandale. So now the scene is described when Srila Vyasdev is sitting in the Himalayas in a place called Shamya Prasha. Okay. Once upon a time, he, Vyasdev, as the sun rose, Ravi Mandale, as the sun rose, he took his morning ablution in the waters of the Saraswati and sat alone to concentrate. So, there's this achaman that rishis do. So, morning starts with going to a river, taking bath, and then doing achaman. So, upasprashya means doing achaman. That means you're purifying yourself and then you sit for meditation. So, river Saraswati is flowing in the Badrikashram area of the Himalayas. So where Srila Vyasadeva sat down to meditate, that place is still preserved today. If you go to Badrinath, a few kilometers ahead of Badrinath is this place called Shamya Parasha. It is near a village called Mana village. Yeah, it's the village on the boundary of India and China. And only there you see the Saraswati River for a very short course. So if you have been there, you know how pristine and pure it is, even in today's times. And once you are there, you get transported into a divine realm. It's perfect for meditation. And that's where Vyasadeva compiled Mahabharata and Lord Ganesh, who was the scribe. All of it happened here in Shamya Prasham, in Badrikashram. So Vyasadeva is sitting there, he's meditating. What is he seeing in his meditation? That is what is interesting. परावरज्ञ स ऋषिः काला कालेना व्यक्तरंहसा युगधर्म व्यतिक्रमः प्राप्तं भुवि युगे युगे. So the great sage Vyasdev saw anomalies. Vyatikaram. Vyatikaram means there is some gadbad, something has gone wrong, some anomalies are gonna creep. In what? In the duties of the millennium. He saw anomalies in the duties of the millennium. This happens on Earth in different ages due to unseen forces in the course of time. Ramhasa, it's the nature of world that with time things deteriorate. So he saw certain anomalies appearing in Kali Yuga. Hmm. So those who are great sages like Vyasdev, they are liberated. They are Trikalagya. They can see past, present, and future. So we could see that in future in Kali Yuga, there is going to be some discrepancies. So then he wants to make an arrangement, to address those anomalies. If those anomalies remain, people will not be able to progress in their spiritual lives. So he made an arrangement so that people can execute a progressive life in this age. Means they keep on progressing spiritually. In this age, Kali, which is full of darkness, The people in this age are too much interested in matter, which is temporary. So you remember the difference between liberated and conditioned? The conditioned soul is engrossed in matter, and a liberated soul is detached from matter. People in Kali Yuga are in general too much interested in matter, but matter is temporary. So therefore, they are going to be bewildered. Because of ignorance, they are unable to evaluate the assets of life. What is of real value? What is of artha? Nate vidu swa artha gati. What is my swartha? My swartha is not in my body. My swartha is in the interest of my soul. They are unable to evaluate the assets of life and be enlightened in spiritual knowledge. Yes. So we have seen so far, beautiful presentation of the characters of Shukdev Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj, and now Vyasdev. So we saw this, vision, Vivikta Drishti. Shukdev Goswami had pure vision. He didn't bother him, it didn't bother those ladies who were bathing. But Vyasdev, because he was in a social scenario, he had to respect those and respect and follow those customs. Therefore, he had to see differences. So, not seeing material distinction is a symptom of realization. And we saw about Parikshit Maharaj that he is completely renounced, but his body is giving shelter to others, the whole praja. So he might be brave and detached, but why did he abandon his body and life heirs? As a king, he should give shelter to the praja, but on his personal account, he was completely disinterested in them. That is the situation of these two. And Vyasdev is sitting on the banks of river Saraswati, envisaging that there are going to be anomalies, that there is going to be deterioration in faith, in strength, and everything is going to be covered by the lower gunas. Sattva will diminish. People will become dull-witted. Memory will become short. Lifespan will become very limited. So he is looking at this disturbance and he wants to intervene. Are you able to understand that the normal course would lead to a certain disturbance, and he wants to enter there and improve the situation, make arrangements? That is where we will see Srimad Bhagavatam being introduced. Okay, so what is the intervention that Vyasadeva does? That's presented in the next two verses, 17 and 18. We can look at them. Bhautikanam cha bhavanam shaktim harasham cha tatkritam ashraddhadhanan sattvan durmedhan risattayusha Durbhagamscha janan vikshya munir divyena chakshusha sarvavarnashramanam yad dadyuhitam amogadrik. Beautiful verses. The great sage who was fully equipped in knowledge could see through his transcendental vision. Divyena chakshusha. Through his divya chakshu he could see. And he was a muni, vichiksha. What could he see through his transcendental vision? He could see through his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material. Bhautikana, everything that's made up of the Pancha Mahabhut is bhautik, is material. So everything material is going to degrade. Bhavanam, due to the influence of the age. He could also see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Nisattva, sattva will reduce. Everything will become devoid of sattva. That means rajas and tamas will be predominant. Ayusha also, you know, the duration of life would also be reduced. Thus, he contemplated for the welfare of men in all statuses and orders of life. Sarva Varanashramanam Yad Dadyu means contemplated. Hitam, what is the welfare? How can I administer welfare of people in this disturbance? In the middle of this disturbance, how can I help them? How can I think of their welfare? Okay. So this is the nature of time, as we saw, by the unmanifested forces of time. Kaleneva avyakta ramhasad, verse 16. The force of time is avyakta. It is invisible. You cannot see how time destroys kingdoms, but it does. Kalena avyakta ramhasa. Ramhasa means very powerful. So there's a powerful invisible force of time. They reduce everything, they reduce all matter to oblivion. So if we have faith in our possessions and our material connections, then you know, we should be aware that nothing material can sustain. In Kali Yuga, the power of all material objects deteriorates by the influence of time. The material body of people is also reduced, so is the memory. The action of matter has also not so much incentive. Means everything loses its potency. The land doesn't produce food in the same proportions as it did in the other ages. The cow does not give as much milk as it used to formerly give. The production of vegetables and fruit is less than before. So basically, all living beings, both men and animals, do not have sumptuous, nourishing food. Everything has become withdrawn and deteriorated. And what to speak of today's situation after processed food and everything. And because due to want of so many necessities of life, if you do not get good nourishment, duration of life is reduced, memory is short, intelligence is meager, and mutual dealings are full of hypocrisy. If nature was providing bountifully, there would be no fight over resources. This competition is coming because of scarcity of resources. That is the entire premise of economics. Because resources are limited, we have to add a value. We have to create a price. We have to match demand and supply. If resources are bountiful, also people have a Ishavasya Drishti. People are not greedy. They are happy. They are nourished. They don't encroach on others' property. So Vyasdev could see all this by his transcendental vision. Divya Chakshusha. So just as an astrologer can see the future fate of a man, or an astronomer can foretell the solar and lunar eclipse, those who are liberated souls can see through the scriptures the future of all mankind. So if you gain Shastra Chakshu, you can actually see the future of humanity. They can see this due to their sharp vision of spiritual attainment. And all these transcendentalists who are naturally devotees of the Lord, they're always eager to render welfare service to the people in general. Bhavana, it says here that he's considering their hitam. How can I benefit them? By them in themselves, they don't need anything. They are self-satisfied, Atmaram. But the nature of liberated soul is that they feel the pain of others. Para dukkha dukhi. So Vyasdev could not tolerate the misery and misfortune of the people of Kali Yuga. So he decided to intervene. They are real friends of the public people in general, not the so-called public leaders who are unable to see what is going to happen 5 minutes ahead, who can actually help you, who knows what is the future. So, public leaders who are devoid of a spiritual vision, they don't know where the future is heading. So, how can they really help us in the truest sense? In this age, people in general, as well as their so called leaders, are all unlucky fellows, faithless in spiritual knowledge and influenced by the age of Kali. They are always disturbed by various disease. Formerly, this was not so. The unfortunate men of this age are always reluctant to give a reception to the transcendentalists. Nobody values sadhus and rishis and saints. They think they are useless beggars. But who are they actually? They are representatives of Srila Vyasdev. And they are selfless workers, hitam, who are always busy in planning something which may help everyone in all statuses and orders of life. So, who are the greatest philanthropists? The greatest sages, transcendentalists, the acharyas, starting with Vyasdev, Narad Muni, Madhvacharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rupa Goswami, Srila Saraswati Thakur. These transcendentalists are the real philanthropists because they know the future and they are the real friends of people. Only they can actually help humanity. They are all one and the same. See, this is so powerful. Parampara gives you the confidence to call them one and the same because you are sure everyone will represent their previous acharya. From there, you can have full confidence in them that they're all the same. Whether you hear from Rupa Goswami or whether you hear from Vyasdev, it's all one and they're all one and the same. The personalities may be different, but the aim of the mission is one and the same. What is that? To deliver the fallen souls back home, back to Godhead. So, how Vyasdev plans to intervene, that we will study in the next session. So, we'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? No? Okay.